Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Reef and I'm going to be discussing mental health in adolescence, specifically depression and public health strategies. I'm going to be discussing factors such as biological factors, epidemiology, socio-ecological impacts, and current intervention programs. So, adolescent depression is currently a major public health concern because of the effects it has on future possible substance abuse, their school performance, and long term health outcomes. So, understanding this condition from multiple public health areas helps us build hopefully effective strategies to support future youth. So, to begin with biology, neurobiology overview, depression in adolescence is influenced by multiple neurobiological pathways. So, this means that genetics, early experiences, and their environment can shape their brain in early parts of their life. So the teen brain is continuously developing. So there's the multiple regions of the brain that regulate emotions and possible mood disorders. This is all being created when you're teen. So if there's stuff happening when you're a teen, then things can be affected in the future. So the neurotransmitters, they play a huge role. So lower levels of disrupted activity of things such as dopamine and norepinephrine. This can cause low moods and be irritable. And also when you're in your teens, a lot of hormones are happening. So hormonal shifts can also influence these chemical pathways. So next, genetics. So genetics also increases vulnerability. So depression can be genetic, passed down through your family history. So when there is family history of depression, you are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop depression, and environmental stressors will influence those risks. And next, finally, diet and stress definitely affect mental health. I know I can be affected by stress and diet and just a lot happening in your adolescent and teen years. So diets high in sugars and processed food are linked to inflammation. And when you're inflamed, that impacts your brain function and can create brain fog. Also, long-term stress increases cortisol levels, which means that it can show as depressive symptoms and altogether is just not good for the adolescents. So the next section I'll be discussing is epidemiology. So prevalence, depression affects about 20% of adolescents by age 18. And this might seem a little low, but it is rising quite quickly, especially in girls. Girls typically have a higher rate than boys, and also in marginalized youth such as LGBTQ, they do tend to experience more mental health, depression, and have higher emotional burdens. Next, adolescent depression and anxiety have definitely increased over the past years, and this comes, I feel like our adolescents nowadays have a lot of outside stressors such as academic pressure, and increasing social comparison. So I'm gonna talk about this later, but social media and just the stress of like college and grades and academic pressure is just so high that this is definitely contributing over time to current mental health of adolescents. Next, another factor of social is, like I said, social media. So always scrolling through social media, comparing each other. Cyberbullying is huge. This can not necessarily, it's not the phones that cause depression, but how they're used, when they're being used, how other people are using them. That is definitely another contributing factor. And the last factor I'm going to discuss is peer pressure. So peer pressure and dynamics of your peers definitely influence mental health. When there is an intense pressure to fit in, or some of your peers are not being kind, this raises your stress levels. And bullying and rejection too, if there is a peer group, being rejected from this peer can increase the risk of these depressive symptoms when it is happening a lot aggressively and a lot over time. And there's one more, my bad. Socioeconomic stress. So especially when you're in school, these adolescents are in school, the stress of comparing each other's family conflicts, or what do they have for lunch, so food insecurity, these can make it hard to identify with a certain group and get along. So next, we're going to talk about socio-ecological. And at the individual level, depression affects your sleep and your eating patterns. Therefore, your daily function, you might be more tired or more hungry that day. So typically, teens turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms. Next, families can definitely feel the effects of depression. Depression can strain their communication and possibly increase conflict within the household. So having that support system, especially in your teen years, can hopefully lessen the depressive symptoms. Next, in schools, depression affects multiple things. And I feel like it has been said to be quite obvious in the school environment because of your academic performance, your social engagement, and just your attendance. So if you're not attending school, a lot of times your teachers can recognize that and see those early signs. And next, at the community level, communities shape access to recreational spaces and youth programs. So stigma around mental health may prevent these adolescents from going and actually seeking help. So community awareness campaigns and safe spaces can hopefully improve early identification if you are feeling these symptoms, but you're not really sure what they are. Next, at the policy level, mental health legislation determines access to many things such as crisis response symptoms, the funding for prevention programs, which is a huge thing that differs from every state, every county. So those fundings and the access to those school psychologists. So strong policies can help create an equitable system of support. So when you're going to school, or if you have something that you need to talk to someone about, you feel comfortable and you have access to that. So for the first program, school-based mental health programs. So at school, there's things such as on-site counselors, screenings, and therapy skills trainings. So these programs at school are trying to reduce stigma and improve coping skills, and improve access so all students can feel included. But some of these barriers include funding and staff shortages. And but it has been shown that when it starts at a young age at school, the impact of these can be quite substantial and have long-term effects emotionally and improve the academic outcomes that the teachers are seeing within school. And the second program is a community-based support network. So these programs include LGBT support groups and mentorship programs and crisis hotlines. These offer safe environments, and if a teen doesn't have necessarily that support system behind them, such as family or school, that they can have a trusted adult. But some of these barriers include inconsistent availability within especially rural areas, and sometimes there is a stigma around seeking help. So hopefully this lessens that. But integrating community programs within school and healthcare systems, this will hopefully create a safety, almost like a network. So wherever an adolescent goes, they know that there's someone and somewhere that will be there to help them. So with the public health integration, both the school and community work best when they're embedded within a larger public health framework, which means that there is an emphasis on early identification, prevention, and there is collaboration with the adults and the adolescents among these programs, which are like the healthcare, family support, and among schools. And then in summary, adolescent depression is shaped by biological, social, and environment factors. So having these effective public health strategies require a lot of people, multi-level approach that is going to take time. It has supportive systems, accessible programs, which is huge, and there is a scientific understanding behind the need. And finally, we must reduce the stigma and just expand accessibility to these adolescents so you can protect mental health across not only in our adolescence, but it will span into your adulthood. And here are my references, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.